Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4124. Today's date is June 26, 2026. It's been almost like a night at 10:27 p.m. All right. Okay, let's just jump into the question. Let's go. All right. So, question is, will AI editing affect legal protection? Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to, okay, I wanted to build an app called My Artifact. Okay, what exactly is this application? When you write the diary every single day, you cannot able to be write the diary the way that you wanted to. The reason is that your thought process are much more faster than your writing speed. Writing speed really required a lot of amount of effort. You need a pen, you need a paper, you need a convenience, and even after that, you cannot able to be print your thoughts because it is so much effort required to write, because the thoughts that you could generate very rapidly, but the that thoughts you cannot able to print on your paper because the effort required too much because writing. So what if instead of writing a diary, what if we could record a diary, like a audio record a diary? The stuff that you are kind of like listening right now, this is my audio diary. I called it My Artifact. Okay, My Artifact episode number 4124. I'm doing this thing for past 11 year. I'm doing this thing for every single day. It add so much amount of value in myself because of writing a diary is a self-reflection process, same as recording a diary, same as recording an artifact is a self-reflection process. It add so much amount of value inside of me. The person that I am became today and person that I will become tomorrow, it is all because of artifact. The amount of value it add into me, I wanted to share this value to the people. How do I supposed to do that? By building an application. My application is a somewhat something like a YouTube platform. In a YouTube, you kind of like upload a video, other people kind of like sees that video. Same thing, you record your artifact, upload your artifact in this artifact platform. Other people kind of like listen your artifact. There is only one catch, is that your privacy is always kept hidden. Before I wanted to build this application, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences, specifically worst possible consequences. Okay, so I went to ChatGPT. I tell my app idea. I tell him that he suggest me like a hundreds of question regarding about what worst possible consequences will gonna happen. Okay, ChatGPT kind of like suggest me hundreds of question. This is one of those question. Now regarding about this question says that how like will AI editing affect the legal protection? First of all, what is exactly AI editing? So basically is this thing previously almost like a maybe month ago, okay, month ago or maybe yeah couple of months ago, I was kind of like a kind of like a thought process that a user kind of like a record the artifact, okay, and at the spur of the moment in his artifact, that particular person kind of like mention other people name and things and that, then my application is powered by AI will kind of like a trim down all the kind of like a simply noun words. Like I mentioned my name is a Saurabh Bauthare, so basically Saurabh Bauthare considered as a noun. AI detect that word, kind of like a where that word came from, like a timestamp, remove that word or add a beep over there so that it sound like my name is beep. Okay, so it kind of like a thing, so that I would be kind of like a protecting the privacy, because privacy is one of the important issue, important kind of like a things. Now, what I was kind of like a thinking that na ki I might be a kind of like a something very wrong with that thing. If I'm kind of like a let AI do this thing, then I might be a wrong. Why? Because AI might gonna found a noun, but he does not understand the context. Let's just say I mention the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Okay, now Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not a kind of like a simply a privacy threat. Okay, but because of Narendra Modi is a kind of like a noun, so it kind of like a simply block or add a beep. Like basically is this thing that it is a kind of like a very wrong thing to kind of like a simply only kind of like attack on noun, because it doesn't really make sense at all, and AI does not really understand the context of every person human being. Okay, so basically is this thing I realized that ki no, it's not. So I have to be kind of like a replace the AI editing by human editing. That human will kind of like do the editing, but it's not the kind of like editing that you are kind of like suddenly imagine as a kind of like a Premiere Pro kind of like editing. No, nothing at all. Okay, by the way, this feature I will not going to implement right now. I'm actually building this application, but after I build the application, the next version would be kind of like have that editing feature. What exactly is this thing? So basically in the kind of like application, okay, let me kind of like tell you the architecture, how this actually happen and things like that and that. Okay, so I'm actually building the application, I'm telling you the architecture. So usually people will kind of like there is a kind of like a record button on the top left, sorry, bottom left corner. Click it. Okay, yeah, then you click. Okay, then kind of like a warning screen actually appear. That warning screen is really essential. In that warning screen it says do not mention your name, your any kind of like a contact detail, do not lie, be honest, and kind of like just tell your story, but do not mention any name and things like that. Why I have this warning screen? Because that warning screen is really essential, because it kind of like a remind user that key what they shouldn't supposed to be do. Okay, it is very much essential to kind of like maintain the privacy, because if the user are kind of like a simply like just kind of like mention the name and things, it's kind of like very difficult for me or difficult for the user for kind of like a remove that thing. Okay, so it is really essential that key they shouldn't supposed to be kind of like a mention the name and things. This warning screen is a kind of like a somebody really helpful for me, so that user will kind of like a remind that key okay, we shouldn't supposed to be record the any kind of like a name and things and that we should supposed to tell a story. So this is a warning screen. Okay, yeah, that warning screen is actually appear for 10 seconds. There is a countdown actually kind of like happened. After the 10 seconds there is a button appear, I understood. Okay, yeah, you click on that understood, then you move to the another screen, recording screen, and the artifact is kind of like a recording started. Okay, yeah. Now in the screen, okay, let me tell you one thing. There is a kind of like a bottom, there is a recording actually happening. In the top screen there is a kind of like a question pop-up. Let me tell you one thing, when you record the artifact, what did you talk about? You need a kind of like a simply a kind of like a reason to talk. That question is became that reason. Usually I have this kind of like a selection of question regarding about the kind of like a some self-help or kind of like something that he add value in human life and things and that. Right now these are kind of like a question are actually embedded, so that kind of like a user will kind of like a ask this question to themselves and kind of like a give the answer. In the next version I also will kind of like add that key user will also add the question, but with the proper guidelines. Okay, why am I this question is kind of like a very essential. The question is a triggered point, it is a shape the person like a basically this thing. Let's just say if I ask a question regarding about like let's just say how you kind of like a feel about the sex and things and that. Now people are talking about the sex and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now is it wrong, is it right? It is definitely not a right. I'm not really sure is it wrong, but it's definitely not a right thing. Why? Because of that when you record the artifact, whatever the stuff that you're gonna talk, higher chances that you will gonna implement in real life. Okay, yeah, literally. Okay, so if you are gonna talk about the physics, you will become physician, like you will become physicist, okay, or maybe science person. If you're talking about economics, you will become economist. You become, if you're talking about history, you are kind of like a become professor. Like whatever the stuff that you will gonna talk, it will implement in your life. You will become that particular person. Same goes with that. If you're talking trash, like a sex talk and things and that, probably you might gonna become rapist. But this is also power of artifact too. And that shifted, that particular mentality is actually shifted from that question. So right question should supposed to be chosen. Now I kind of like simply put a lot of effort that what kind of like a question should I supposed to be asked to the user and things and that, as well as user also asks a kind of like a question that they want. Like basically right now I'm not kind of like a implement this feature, but in the future I will have that feature that key user will have a kind of like a simply that key they will create their own question bank. Okay, yeah, whatever that they question wanted to ask, they will kind of like create their own question bank. Okay, I don't know how they're supposed to do this thing, but kind of like a somebody is this thing, it's kind of like a inside, like there is a kind of like a some feature I will gonna add in the setting maybe. So in the question bank, kind of like a somebody is this thing that key a user can kind of like a pick up the question and they will kind of like ask the question and things and that to themselves. Okay, yeah, regarding about that. Okay, so this would be kind of like a much more better, so that they would understand what kind of like a question they should supposed to be asked to themselves, and they will kind of like a give the answer. Okay, yeah, so they will kind of like a record the artifact, there is a question pop-up, they will kind of like a give the answer. Okay, they will record their artifact for almost like a maybe let's just say 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, regarding about whatever they think that after the record they will kind of like a stop the recording. Okay, yeah, now let me tell you one thing. It is very essential for user to listen his own artifact first. First of all, after he record the artifact, there is another screen pop-up. Either you have to save your artifact in a draft, or you could upload you could review your artifact. Save into the draft means like that you could save into the draft, a local memory. It will not gonna publish. It will kind of like simply just kind of like a things. Okay, yeah. If you wanted to publish, then you have to review your artifact. Now what is exactly the review? Review is also one of the really essential thing, because usually is this thing when people will kind of record the artifact, they will gonna talk shit, literally. Okay, I also kind of like mention this thing because I am recording artifact for past 11 year. Beginning 5 year of my artifact was kind of like a so shit talk that it's barely not even kind of like somebody meant to listen. Like I was kind of like talking about that today I wake up, I did this, I did that, I went there, I came home, that's it. It's just like, yeah, what exactly is this thing? But when the COVID actually happened, and then I kind of like somebody realized that let's make artifact a little bit of interesting. So I started asking question to myself, and artifact became kind of like a very interesting way, not only to kind of like somebody record the artifact, but as well as listening to. Okay, yeah, that's why I have this kind of like a question to kind of like make the artifact a little bit of interesting to talk. Okay, yeah. But another thing is that now review is very much essential for kind of like a security purpose, that key I need a verification from user that key whatever the information they will kind of like publish, are you okay with that or not? Why is this thing? Because let me tell you one thing, if I not kind of like add the review screen, they just kind of like record and directly publish, they might gonna regret. Because let me tell you one thing, when you record the artifact, you don't really listen. Like basically what exactly happen when we are talking, we are kind of like thinking from just our point of perspective, my point of perspective. Okay, yeah, like what exactly I'm thinking from my point of perspective, I'm talking. But when we are listening, whatever the stuff that we are listening, we are kind of like somebody, when we listen, we understand the context, like we understand the things. Like basically is this thing, when we talk, from our point of perspective, the person who is actually talking, he's not listening to his word. Like basically there is no filter at all. Okay, like this is kind of like a things that I realize. Okay, yeah. So what I realized that ki user should supposed to be review his own artifact. Okay, you cannot able to be upload artifact without review. Review is a very much essential. Every user should supposed to be listen his own artifact almost like a 90-95% entirely. Okay, yeah. Now in this review feature, right now there is just a listening, but in the future I will have a kind of like assembly editing feature too. So in the editing feature, what will gonna happen, that key user kind of like a press the play button. Okay, his artifact, whatever he actually talk, he kind of like has to be listen. Okay, yeah. And whatever the stuff that he think that this particular section of his artifact that shouldn't supposed to be removed, he should supposed to be removed. So that particular person cut that thing or remove that particular section. Okay, yeah. A very simple editing kind of like a techniques, not kind of like a add too much amount of thing, just cut the kind of like a clips. Okay, that is only kind of like a things to remove the part. Okay, so it is kind of like a far more kind of like a better, so that user will kind of like a sure that what kind of like information are they are kind of like a sending to the internet. That's why I have this review system. Right now I don't really have editing feature. I just have only one thing, that user should supposed to be listen his entire artifact. If the user are kind of like a thing that no, it's not really thing, then they have to be like a save it public. I don't know. Yeah, like right now I just like I will kind of like have this editing feature soon. Okay, but at the early stage I have to be kind of like a make sure that ki let just people should supposed to be listen his own artifact. Okay, yeah. And then after that, after they kind of like a listen, they kind of like a set the title, set the emotion button, whatever the kind of like emotion that they represent throughout the artifact, fun, happy, sad, anxious, whatever. Okay, yeah. And kind of like a publish. Okay, yeah. Now I have this architecture. I designed this architecture for kind of like a very like a for a kind of like a better purposes, like better kind of like basically this thing. I don't want my platform filled with toxicity. Toxicity means what? Let me tell you one thing. YouTube is a kind of like a things, is a kind of like a much more better platform. Because of that, whatever the video that YouTube or YouTuber kind of like uploaded, they listen their artifact. So they listen their whatever this stuff they say. They kind of like wrote the script. They kind of like things like basically they plan everything to make a video and then they record the video and things and that and that. Artifact doesn't really have that thing. Artifact is a kind of like a raw thoughts, literally raw thoughts. Okay, and because of it's a raw thoughts, it is very difficult to kind of like a control the people that what they should supposed to be talk. And most of the chances would be people talk shit. Literally, I did talk shit too. Higher and higher chances that people will gonna talk shit. Okay, yeah. And it is very essential that they will not kind of like a somebody public that kind of like a shit into the in front of public and things and that. So that's why I have this review button. That's why I have this review thing that key kind of like a somebody that key neglect all those kind of like a toxicity at least. Okay, at least user kind of like a somebody remove that toxicity and things and that. So that I would kind of like a remove. I don't really have to kind of like a manually kind of like a block the things and remove the artifact and things and that. No. User kind of like a listen their own artifact. If they are really comfortable, they will kind of like a publish and things. Okay, so that kind of like a the shit artifact they will also upload it. Okay, it's not really that shit artifact or kind of like a simply people will gonna talk shit. It will not gonna stop. They will kind of like continue doing this thing, but it will kind of like a have kind of like a blocker. Okay, yeah. But there is also another thing that I was also kind of like very much concerned because of I add so much amount of kind of like a layer to kind of like a slow down. Okay, yeah. Okay, let me tell you one thing now is this thing that key because of review, because of this and that, it adds so much amount of kind of like a simply the path of publishing artifact is not really smooth. It's a kind of like a very much obstacle and things and that. Now I wanted to understand that key how is this thing, how does people will gonna react, because let me tell you one thing now key if I have the review system, okay, like let's just say 10 people are kind of like a recording. After the 10 people, how many people will kind of like a publish the artifact? 4, 10 out of 4, 6 people will not gonna publish the artifact. Why? Because it like this review system is a kind of like a create much more bottleneck, and that's I have to be figure it out. Okay, yeah. I was thinking that ki probably every artifact before it publish it should supposed to be review, but then I thinking that ki what if I would kind of like assembly that ki let the user kind of like decide that when that particular person review or not. Like basically after that particular artifact publish, then if the user wanted to kind of like remove that particular segment, then they could able to do this thing. But right now I don't know what is actually people opinion and things and that. But basically it's this thing that na ki I kind of like strongly believe that ki having that review system is a kind of like a kind of like a bit more filtration process actually happened. Because if like my platform is kind of like I'm kind of like giving freedom to the people, whatever they wanted to talk they could talk. Okay, yeah. But it is also really essential that na ki whatever they might gonna talk, it might gonna impact on them, kind of like a create bad influence and things and that. The world that you are kind of like seeing so pretty is not pretty. People are so dark inside, and literally, yeah, I am not gonna kind of like I'm like dude, like basically you are kind of like thinking about all the worst possible consequences. People are not really that bad. Okay, good. Like basically I'm completely agree that he kind of like people are not really that bad. People are kind of like really good and things and that responsible. They will kind of like talk something really good. Fine. If they are talking something really good, I will kind of like simply recommend their artifact to the millions and billions of people. Yeah, literally, if their artifact is kind of like really good, really great, it does add value something in their life and things and stuff like that, I will definitely kind of like recommend the artifact to the millions and billions. Okay, yeah, my recommendation system is a kind of like a recommend to the more and more. Because what is actually happened, dude? First of all, how this will kind of like a recommend? Okay, let me tell you one thing now. We are humans and we are love to know about other humans. Okay, let me tell you one thing. There is a kind of like audio file about a kind of like a some woman from a kind of like a some, let's just say, New Zealand. Okay, yeah. And she was actually talking about that she been through kind of like a somebody the career and things and that she's a kind of like a failing, she's try and things and that. Let me tell you one thing. I'm from India, so basically it is very much eager for me to know what is actually happening in her life. Why? Because I don't really know what she been going through, or maybe kind of like her demographic point of perspective, what is actually her reality. Like basically this thing in Indian context, we have followed the rule like do the education till this dow, like till the age of 25, get job till the age of 27, get married till the age of 30, have a child till the age of 31. So these are kind of like rules. Like basically every kind of like a demographic have a kind of like a different opinion regarding about how should we supposed to be survive, or how do we supposed to live the life. And every country, every kind of like some things have kind of like a different opinion regarding about everything. Okay, yeah. So if that New Zealand kind of like a woman kind of like a sharing that particular detail, if I am from India, I wanted to understand why she been through and things and that, so that I would understand her context. Okay, yeah. Obviously it is depend also multiple depends on kind of like somebody, if she's speaking English, then yeah, because if she is kind of like speaking something a random language, or maybe kind of like something the original language, then obviously it's kind of like far more difficult for me to recommend her artifact to the more and more. But if she's kind of like a recording artifact in English, then I would recommend her artifact to the rest of the world. Yeah, literally, if she's kind of like talking something really good and things and that, millions and billions of views you will kind of like get very easily. Yeah. Because this is kind of like a thing, and this is what I want. Okay, yeah. But if you're kind of like talking trash, then no, it's not really a good thing too. Okay, so basically is this thing that the AI editing kind of like a things, I am completely bypass this. Okay, because it's not really good thing at all, because AI might not gonna kind of like things, AI might gonna recommend probably, like in this particular section you might mention some sort of name and things and that, which is kind of like a really good. Okay, yeah, it will kind of like add value to the user and things and that, but still right now I just have to end here. Okay, it's been almost like a rain is actually happening, and I cannot able to record the artifact. I cannot able to hold the phone that much. Okay, whatever, this is and regarding about the question is that ki, will AI editing affect the legal protection? Well, there is no AI editing, so if I'm not kind of like implement the AI editing, then there is no kind of like simply legal protection regarding about the user privacy, nothing really at all. Okay, user will kind of like a responsible for everything what they will kind of like simply share, because I already tell you the architecture, how this actually happening, things and that. But in the future I have to be figure it out everything. Okay, in the future, if it kind of like a creates so much amount of bottleneck and kind of like early user are not kind of like a publish their artifact or things and that I don't know about the kind of like a things. Maybe I will kind of like somebody that ki review system will also kind of like somebody enable after you publish the artifact and things and that I don't know, but that review system should supposed to be there. Okay, yeah, every artifact or every person who record the artifact should supposed to be review his own artifact. It's very much essential and kind of like somebody create it's kind of like a figure it out, make sure your own accountability, because if you are kind of like a sharing the information, then you have to make sure that whatever the consequences will gonna happen to. So that's why I kind of like have a lot of privacy feature and lot of warning screen and lots of review system and that. So yeah, all right. Okay, so this is it and thank you.